preparing the way for generations. Like a praise singer, griot, jailer, shaman trickster, and spinners of dreams and visions. Like mystic magic messages in bottles. Like a prayer or a confession. For Artship is our canvas. Freedom of imagination precedes freedom of speech. We will prepare the way. Our ship, Artship.
Tell us, what make you realize then you are interested or committed to art?
Well, I'm getting used to the idea of being an artist, basically. It's been a very long road from being a designer, an architect, or sort of a refugee from architecture. Basically, for the past 7 years, I've been building furniture and designing things and learning how to weld and learning how to build, basically, because that was something that wasn't taught in architecture and wasn't important in architecture in lots of ways. So it's only been in the last year, and particularly actually working on the Artship, where I started to realize that I didn't want to be a designer. I didn't want to figure out problems that were too practical, that there were lots of problems that were really impractical that were much more interesting. So it's been sort of starting to realize that my mind does not work in a way that's efficient or particularly direct, and that's okay. That to follow the strange path is actually a better one, and to think that that's not to not believe in the efficiency idea that we have about you have 5 hours to design this thing, you have 20 hours to build it. It's now to think about it that it's okay to invest time and thought and energy and care into something in sort of a ridiculous amount of time and make something different and strange. And so I think it's sort of on this project particularly, as you know, the amount of time that goes into things has become sort of bizarrely out of kilter with the rest of the world, but that it sort of pays off, I guess, because of that.
What keeps you going? What inspires you?
Just looking. I just love to look at things, and basically anything that's some caterpillar backhoe on a construction site, or a bird, or a flower, or anything, really. I mean, just the whole world, I think, is just amazing, and how things go together, and how things move, and how one person can build a huge thing, or one team of people can build a huge building. I basically look a lot. I look around, and I guess just get interested in the intricate, the small, the odd little corners of the world. Oakland being a really good little corner of the world with lots of industry and old steel buildings and old ships. And I had a studio down Jack London Square, and we had a sort of roll side door, and you could look out onto the main Oakland tracks, and they were about 10 feet away. And so these huge freight trains coming by would just sort of overwhelm the space, and beautiful old freight cars and steel doors and the wheels. And one time the Ringling Brothers Circus came through on the train, and all the cars for the passengers, but then at the end were the poor tigers that had gone through the valley in 110-degree heat, and they were in these cages. And again, sort of the combination of being in Oakland, which has its own rawness, its own wildness, and then this captivated thing that should be in somewhere else completely different, wild and free, and sort of that kind of juxtaposition that you get in a place that's as dense and as lively and interesting and real. The corners, the dirty corners of the world are actually really very interesting and very alive and very inspiring, and a way that are not part of our sort of way of doing business. It's sort of a way of actually working. And so I guess it's about the work that's done in cities that I'm really interested in.
You almost answered a question, but why did you decide to make Oakland your place of creation and work?
During school, I would take sort of a couple days and walk and drive around, and it was always I was in Berkeley, so I'd start at the Berkeley tracks and walk down the tracks and see sort of some remnants of old industry down there. But when I got down into Oakland and started to understand the scale of that industry and the integrity of the buildings, and I think that it was sort of to realize that there was an old part of an old architecture. I was in architecture school, so I was looking for sort of inspiration of what a building should be, instead of like the kind of more modern 50s. A lot of the architecture that's in Berkeley often is that sort of stucco box situation. And so to go and search out the steel and the industry and the railroad tracks and the recycling building that's all skeletal steel, and it's basically they've recycled parts of the building down to its bones, and it's just full of packs of metal packaged into these cubes. And so it's that kind of searching and wandering and picking up bits of metal and making models out of them, and trying to do something that wasn't slick and for a computer. And that Oakland was particularly useful for that, to sort of search out what another path would be.